It's Sunday night. You're lying in bed doing the math again. Not because something went wrong. Nothing went wrong. You just can't stop. Mortgage, car payment, groceries. The same numbers you ran last Sunday and the Sunday before that. Trying to figure out if this is the month you finally get ahead, or if you're going to tread water again like you have been for 3 years. You already know the answer. But you keep running it anyway. Meanwhile, your neighbor, same street, similar house, not dramatically higher income, woke up last Tuesday and just didn't go to work. No emergency. He just didn't feel like it. So he didn't. He's not richer than you. He just stopped doing that math. Stay with me through this entire video. Because by the end, that Sunday night calculation is going to look completely different. And the thing I'm saving for the end is the one thing nobody tells you when you're sitting in a bank office signing 30 years of your life away. Let's start with the real numbers, because most people have never actually seen them laid out honestly. The average mortgage payment in 2025 hit $2,329 a month. For anyone who bought at current rates, you're closer to $2,845. The median American household takes home roughly $5,400 a month after taxes, which means on a median income, the mortgage alone is consuming 43% of your disposable income, before a single grocery, before a single car payment. Every financial professional on the planet agrees the safe ceiling is 28%. Most mortgage holders are living 15 percentage points over that limit every single month for 30 years. Let me show you what that actually looks like. Meet the Garcias. Combined income of $110,000, which sounds solid until life runs through it. After taxes and a modest retirement contribution, they take home $6,800 a month. Mortgage, $2,400. Property taxes, $380. Insurance and maintenance, $520. That's $3,300 just to legally occupy the building. 2 car payments, $800. Insurance and gas, $520. Student loans, $550. Health insurance, $380. Groceries, $700. Utilities and phones, $420. They have $130 left. And they haven't touched clothing, kids' activities, medical copays, or any real savings beyond that modest retirement contribution. The Garcias aren't reckless. They've never been to Europe. They did everything they were supposed to do. And every decision they make, every career conversation, every thought about starting something on the side, gets filtered through one silent question running constantly in the background. Can we still cover the mortgage? That tab never closes. Until one day, it does. Here is what actually happens when the mortgage disappears. And I want to be precise because people get this wrong in both directions. You don't suddenly have the full payment amount to invest. Property taxes, insurance, and maintenance still exist. On a $400,000 home, you're still paying roughly $838 a month with no mortgage. So if your payment was $2,845, you've freed up approximately $2,000 a month in real deployable money. Not $2,845, about $2,000, which is still, sit with this, by now, absolutely life-changing when you understand what it compounds into. Take that $2,000 and put it into a basic index fund at the historical average return of 8% annually. In 10 years, $365,000. In 20 years, $1,177,000. You contributed $480,000 of your own money. The market contributed $697,000 on top of that, more than you put in yourself. The majority of your eventual wealth didn't come from working harder. It came from compound interest finally having the room to work. That is what the bank doesn't explain when you are signing the paperwork. They're not going to volunteer that their product is standing between you and $1.1 million. Now, here is the part I promised you, the surprise, and it has nothing to do with spreadsheets. A 2019 study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences tracked what happened to people the moment their debts were completely eliminated, not reduced, eliminated. Anxiety dropped from 78% of participants showing clinical symptoms down to 53%, a 25 percentage point reduction just from closing debt accounts. People didn't just feel better, they performed measurably better on cognitive assessments. They became less impulsive, less likely to sacrifice long-term outcomes for short-term relief. But here is the finding that stopped me. The number of accounts closed mattered more than the dollar amount of relief. Closing a $3,000 credit card produced more psychological improvement than partially reducing a $5,000 debt. The brain doesn't process dollar amounts, it processes open tabs. For most people who've worked through credit cards, car loans, and student debt, the mortgage is the last open tab. When it closes, people describe it the same way every time. Like a refrigerator hum you'd completely stop noticing, suddenly going quiet. Northwestern researchers also found that carrying high debt correlates with measurably higher blood pressure, higher rates of depression, and worse health outcomes, even after controlling for income. The mortgage isn't just a financial obligation. Your body has been carrying it too. And when it's gone, your body notices. I want to address one argument directly because it deserves a real answer. If your mortgage rate is below 5%, the math says investing the difference outperforms early payoff. Wharton professor Michael Roberts found that investing excess payments beat early payoff in roughly 95% of historical 30-year windows. At rates below 4.5%, the spreadsheet is correct. But the spreadsheet assumes you actually invest the difference. Most people don't. The payment was forced savings. When it becomes discretionary cash, a significant portion of households absorb it into lifestyle within 18 months and have nothing to show for it. It also assumes you can watch your portfolio drop 40% in a crash while still making $2,500 in mandatory monthly payments and not make a catastrophic decision under that pressure. One scenario is uncomfortable. The other is why people sell at the worst possible moment. At rates above 7%, most people who bought since 2022, aggressive payoff is a competitive guaranteed return. Between 4.5 and 7%, it's a genuine judgment call. Below 4.5%, invest the difference, but only if you actually will. The real answer is never just a rate, it's knowing yourself. Let's take the Garcias to year 22. They chose to accelerate. An extra $500 a month toward principal when they could, bi-weekly payments the rest of the time. At year 22, the mortgage is gone. Their monthly expense floor drops by $2,000. In the financial independence formula, eliminating $24,000 a year in mandatory costs reduces their independence number by $600,000. They didn't earn more money. They didn't get a promotion. They simply changed what survival costs. And that number shapes everything. Mrs. Garcia stops filtering every career decision through whether this job is stable enough to cover the payment. She takes the role with more meaning and slightly less salary, because they can absorb the difference now. Mr. Garcia starts the business he'd been talking about for years, because one difficult quarter no longer means they risk losing the house. Their income didn't change. Their decisions changed completely. Because the math changed completely. How do you actually accelerate this? Because the numbers on getting there 5 to 8 years early are more powerful than most people calculate. On a $450,000 mortgage at 6.5%, your total interest over 30 years is $573,840. The bank collects more from you in interest alone than the original value of the home. Bi-weekly payments, splitting your monthly amount in half and paying every 2 weeks, produces 13 full payments per year instead of 12. That one adjustment cuts 5 to 6 years off the loan and eliminates over $119,000 in interest. One extra payment per year, $119,000 gone. An extra $500 a month toward principal saves approximately 8 years and $150,000 in interest. An extra $1,000 a month brings the term down to 17 years. The difference between paying off at 55 versus 63, given everything we've covered, is not a small difference. It is an entirely different version of the second half of your life. When the last payment processes, here is what you do. In order, verify your lender filed the lien release and you received your deed. Lenders occasionally don't file it. You find out years later when you try to sell and discover you don't legally own what you've been paying for. Boring instruction. Essential. Rebuild your emergency fund first. 6 to 12 months of your new lower expenses and liquid savings before anything else. Then deploy the freed payment in this order. First, your full 401k employer match, because that's a guaranteed 50 to 100% return and nothing else comes close. Second, max your Roth IRA, $7,000 in 2025, completely tax-free growth. Third, max your full 401k contribution of $23,500. Fund an HSA if eligible. Then everything remaining into low-cost index funds in a taxable brokerage account. Redirect $2,000 a month through these channels at historical returns. $365,000 in a decade. $1.17 million in 20 years. Not because you did anything clever, because you survived the mortgage, closed the last tab, and finally let compound interest do what it was always capable of doing. The mortgage was never just a large bill. It was a permission slip you had to quietly ask for every time you considered doing something different with your life. Want to leave a job that's wearing you down? Check the mortgage first. Want to start something risky? Not while the payment requires both incomes. Want to take a pay cut for work that matters? The mortgage says no. For most people, across most of their adult lives, the mortgage is the invisible hand shaping every major decision they make. When it releases, why? That's what the Garcias find at year 22. Not sudden wealth, just the ability to finally make decisions based on what they actually want rather than what the payment requires. That's the thing nobody says in the bank office. That's the change that matters most. That Sunday night math you've been running. You're not running it forever. The people who stop earliest aren't the ones who earned the most. They're the ones who understood what the finish line was worth and moved toward it on purpose. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from, and which part of this hit closest to your own situation. I read every one, and if this is the kind of content you want more of, real numbers, no shortcuts, subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it tonight. The finish line is real. The math works. You just have to decide it's worth running toward.